All right, this is the life of David. This is a first timer. So, you guys, My Fun Science has expanded. We're not just science and STEM related type classes anymore. We have expanded. So, which is crazy and awesome and exciting. So, how many of you guys are taking other classes other than science? I mean, obviously, you're in the Bible class here, but how many of you are taking other classes with My Fun Science that are not STEM related, like English or history, foreign language? You guys, okay, cool. Very, very fun. Well, this is a new opportunity. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is a great class. This is going to be super fun. Uh, King David was pretty much my favorite Bible character, and he's also my least favorite all at the same time. And you'll see that, you'll learn about that. He's quite a character. But this is going to be a very fun study for us. We're going to really learn a lot about ourselves, a lot about God, and of course, a lot about David, which is going to be fun. Oh, very fun, you guys. So I'm hoping that this is an amazing school year, that everybody has a great time learning. We're going to start with prayer. That's how I start every week that we do. I do want to give a little heads up. How many of you guys are firstborn in your family? Anybody? I know there's not too many in this class, and I'm sure a couple of you. Okay, Elliot, you're the firstborn. I think pretty much Jefferson, I don't know. There's a couple others that aren't here today that might be firstborn. If you're a firstborn, you probably know what it means to be the guinea pig. Like, you are the one that gets to break in your parents because it's the first time for them. So you're like the guinea pig for everything. And you probably feel that, probably, right, Elliot? I'm guessing. When parents don't know what they're doing, God bless our amazing firstborn children that help us out. All of you are going to be Mama Bear's firstborn children for this class. You're my guinea pigs because this has never been done before. I've not taught a Bible class online like this before, so this is going to be new for me. Very exciting for me. This is one of my passions, is any kind of Bible study. I love the Bible. I currently am, let me let Tatum in. Awesome. Um, I am officially a seminary student right now. I am in seminary. I will graduate in May next year. So when you guys are done with the school year, so will I. So I'll be in school in tandem with you, which is going to be fun. But I am currently studying pastoral care ministries. So I'm doing a lot of Bible study and a lot of just studies about counseling and that kind of stuff. So this is a lot of fun for me to learn. Hi, Tatum. Glad you're here. Glad you made it. Awesome, awesome. This is going to be a fun class. We're going to
Hello.
really dig into all these intricate details of David's life, which is going to be a lot of fun, but also it's going to be challenging. I want us to be motivated to live in such a way that our heart is what is after God. And that's what draws us to him, is having a heart after him, but it's also what draws him to us. He loves seeing a heart that's made after his own heart. So we're going to dig into that. I do want to start every week with prayer. We're going to start with prayer. This week, our objectives are to go kind of over how the class works. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a little journal. You guys are going to see how to do that in class, and then you'll get to do that for homework this week. And then I'll give you an introduction on the life of David. We're just going to like scratch the surface a little bit. But we're going to start with prayer. Every week when we do start with prayer, I do want to make sure that we give space for prayer requests. It's been interesting over the years. Whenever we lift each other up in prayer, we watch how God moves and how he actually answers what we've been praying for. And so it's very encouraging. It's also kind of a nice safe space. Usually nobody really knows each other in this online platform. And so sometimes it's kind of fun that way, where we can actually open up and we can say, hey, I'm struggling with this relationship, or, my friend has cancer, or, different things like that, that we can just be there for one another in an online situation. So I want to make sure you guys have space for that. By the end of the semester, we'll all be great friends and make amazing connections. That's how it always works. I've done this for 10 years now, so I can see how God is going to already be moving in a really powerful way. So let's go ahead and start with prayer, and then we'll dig in. Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity to learn about the life of David and how he has impacted us in so many ways by his triumphs, the things that he's done well, and also we've learned from his mistakes and a lot of the things that he's done that we can even identify with in our shortcomings, and also the worshiping heart that he has before you, that he's demonstrated even through the Psalms, and how those words and those passages have become comfort to people for thousands of generations. We just have all gleaned from just learning and loving more about you and learning more about you as we dig in. And so I pray that that is what we experience this semester, that we can have this solid foundation put inside of us that teaches us how to become close to you, how to listen to your still small voice, and how to interact with you on a daily basis, just like King David did. And so, Lord, we offer this semester to you, and we ask that you would go before us in every way. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. So, yes. Okay, Kason, that's really good to know. And also, you guys, I do encourage my students that whenever someone has a prayer request, he says his teammate towards ACL, which is very, very difficult in recovery, just very difficult to have a fast recovery. So let's be praying for his teammate. What's your teammate's friend's name? Your teammate's name. um, we can lift him up. His name's Guy. That's cool. So let's all just lift up Guy throughout the week. You know, anytime you hear the word Guy, it might even remind you, hey, oh yeah, that guy. Let's go pray for him. So just keep him in prayer, and then let's see how God moves on his behalf by people praying for him that he doesn't even know. Isn't that cool? It's kind of fun sometimes to be a part of something that's just covert, little sneaky, but it's amazing how God works even in these unexpected ways. Okay, my contact information. This is a great way to get a hold of me. Emailing me is perfect. It's my preference. If you have something that's more of an emergency, please use the phone number. You can text me. Um, Anytime you're just having trouble, it's maybe time sensitive and you're just like, I can't do this, I don't know what's going on, please text me. I'm more than happy. Just remind me what class you're in, because I have several students. I have 4 different classes, so it's really it's helpful to me if you just remind me which class you're in. But texting, I don't give my phone number to everybody. You're special. So please respect it, but make sure that you know that you have access to my phone number, and you can get a hold of me if you need to. I'm glad to help with anything. This is the grading scale. We have 3 different categories of what we do for our grade book. You have weekly assignments, things that are you can expect every week. You have assessments and quizzes from time to time, and then you'll have projects, and that includes this week. We're going to have a project right from the start, making our little journal. This is the breakdown of your grades. The one really amazing perk for Mama Bear's classes are that in each of these categories at the end of the semester, I drop your lowest score, which is kind of nice because then you can be sure to have, you know, one freebie in each of those categories. Yay, you're welcome. Class protocol. I really appreciate when we are very honorable and respectful in our classes. So the chat is always, I expect respect. That's just how it's going to be. No profanity, swearing, no tearing down, any of that stuff. I just don't tolerate any of it. Also, no web links. If you could send me directly the web links in an email or a message, even texting me, if you have something you want to share, I just have to go through and vet everything that comes through and make sure that it's material that is okay and necessary for our class. And of course, filling the chat with nonsense. I usually don't have that kind of trouble with the older students, which is kind of nice. Sometimes the younger students can get exciting, but yeah, you guys know what I mean with filling the chat with nonsense. It's like just like rows and rows and rows of like exclamation points and stuff like that. And it just gets distracting and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Pretty much you guys probably get the idea here. Just keeping everything in your life, you know, discussions, the homework, life in general, just everything to be respectful. Also, I kind of have this strict no politics policy. And that's interesting because in this class, we're going to be studying about the Davidic kingdom, and that's very much political. But it's a different kind of kingdom. Also, it's biblical. There's a lot of biblical history in this, but I don't want politics from today in our very polarized world of everybody being very divisive and all of the things and opinions that are flying everywhere. I just want a space where you don't have to worry about that in this class. We all have our opinions and it's important and it's good, but this class isn't one of those places that we have to do that. So it's kind of nice to give people a free space from political things and agendas, just so everybody understands that. Um, in the live class, like right here, if you come, try to be on time. I just won't start from the beginning, won't start over. You can watch the recording if you miss stuff, but I appreciate it if you sign in with your name and then just your state. You don't need to put in your last name. It's kind of a, just another one of those things that we will try to keep everyone from having, just exposure online. One thing I did want to mention, I'm starting out with Zoom right now. I am going to be transitioning over to Adobe Connect. So everyone is going to be informed of that. I'll make sure that you guys all know. I just am, I'm getting my bearings on Adobe Connect right now. And so I'm not as comfortable yet until I get comfortable. I'm going to just stick with Zoom for a week or two here, and then we'll all make that switch at the same time. Does that make sense? Um, is everyone familiar with Adobe Connect? Anybody know? Okay, Renee, you are. I imagine, okay, some maybe not. It's a lot better than Zoom. It just is. Um, so it'll all make sense. I'll make sure everybody knows what to expect ahead of time. But all of my fun science is switching to Adobe Connect, and it seems to be a good decision. I just am not as familiar with it yet. So just to give you the heads up on that. Also, homework policies, I really want you to just do your best work. I don't usually grade super strictly. I'm not like the pickiest person when it comes to spelling errors and stuff. Now, if your spelling error makes it so I really don't understand what you're saying, then I might be a little picky, but for the most part, I'm very flexible. Those of you who've had me before, you know that I'm probably one of the easiest teachers that you'll ever have. Don't tell anyone that. Um, your homework is due the day before class. So since our class meets on Wednesday, your homework will be due on Tuesday. The same is true for any quizzes. All of that needs to be done the night before class, handed in before the night before class, because at 11:59 the door closes and then it shows as late, or with an assessment or a quiz you can't even get into it because the window to get in closes. So just make sure that you followed the due dates. I try to make it as easy as possible so that you're done the day before class, you know it's due, and then we're done. We're good. If you do have any trouble, let me know. I'm so glad to help anybody with any questions they might have with handing things in and that sort of thing. Technology, I'm not like a tech expert, but in fact, many of you guys probably are. I've noticed that your generation just has a knack for it. You already know how to make things work. So if I don't know the answer, I will find out for you. But any trouble that you're having, please communicate. There are some people that they'll have trouble and then they just never reach out, and I never know what's going on. So it's better if you just reach out somehow. My email's there, my phone number again. So if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to help you with that. Also turning in assignments. I do have a video that I'll post on the class page called Handing in Assignments video, that shows you how to do that in Schoology. The files that I cannot see in Schoology are the .pages and the .heic. And also some zip files I can't unlock. I can't get to them. So those are some that make it very difficult. The best thing to do when you're handing in assignments is to put it in a PDF format. And most of the time you can just save it as a PDF. If it's a .doc, like Microsoft Office that you're working in, something like that, that shows up just fine. Or the JPG, I call them JPEGs, they work just fine. I can see those. Even if you give me a link to a Google Drive file, just make sure I have access to it, because you have to give permissions to people to be able to see those kind of Google Drive things. Scanned images usually work fine. PDFs will always work. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, always do that one. I don't think we have any siblings in this class. Is there anybody I'm pretty sure none of you are siblings. Sometimes people will hand in homework to their siblings' account if they're in the same class. So I try to give that little warning just in case. This is the little booklet that we'll be using. Look how tiny, you guys. It's just a teeny weeny little booklet. How many of you guys already have this? Anybody? Cool, cool, cool. If you do have it, grab it and let's have it for class here. Also your Bible, right? We're going to be using your Bible, which is cool. Any of these common versions will work. So New American Standard, New King James, even King James, NIV, NLT, New Living Translation, the English Standard Version, ESV, and I think there's another one, I think CSV, and I can't remember. Common? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, most of those versions are just fine to use. In fact, I really love, as a seminary student, I love looking at all the different versions. I usually have a side by side of like 4 different Bibles going on at one time. So it's kind of fascinating to me. I even enjoy some parts of like having the Message Bible brought in, or the Amplified, or there's a new one called the Passion Translation. Some of those are kind of fun to see, but I like to have kind of a standard version of the Bible. So CSB, thank you, Kason. Yeah, that's another one that's more than good to use. So any of these are probably fantastic. Most of you probably have a version of this. One thing that I use a lot that I will suggest is Blue Letter Bible. Let me put a link in here for you. I'll just copy that. This is something that you'll want to bookmark because it has like a bajillion resources. It's one of my favorite. You can find when you look at the different Bibles available, there's like this enormous list. So even if English isn't your first language, if you're Spanish speaking, you'll have the Bible right there. In all different languages, all different types. So it's kind of a nice it's a nice resource to have. Also, when you click into a verse, you can see it's what we call the interlinear Bible, and that has the original Hebrew or Greek, which is really awesome. So you can see some of those original words. Is very helpful for studying. So that's another resource that you guys can pull from. Also, in this Blue Letter Bible, you can do an audiobook, like the audio Bible. How many of you guys have ever listened to the Bible? Like just listened to audio versions of it? Anybody have like, I don't know if anybody has something that they enjoy, especially I have one that I love called Streetlights. You guys, I love it. It's you can you'll know why if you okay. I just probably have to play a little tiny bit for you. They're on Spotify. If you don't have Spotify, they do have an app and it's free, but you have to play it from the app. Let me see if I can share with you guys a little bit because it's one of those amazing. Let's see if I can pull this up. So let's see. Here we go. I'm just going to share it with you. This is not the app. This is Spotify. So if you get the app, it'll look a little different. But this is a public playlist that I have. Every book that they have finished is in here. So if I go even like into Psalms, let's see, we'll go with 23rd Psalm. Most people know that one. I play that. the idea. This is one of those resources that I highly recommend because it makes listening to the Bible fun. I'm still trying to figure out what version of the Bible they use because it's not doesn't fit with my typical New American Standard, but it is a great way to listen to the Psalms, and we're going to be listening. Was it covering my voice? We're going to be listening to the whole entire book of the Psalms. You can read it. That's totally fine. But I find that it's very difficult to take it all in a short amount of time. And so I suggest something like this, an audio Bible of some kind that makes it more interesting. Also, that you can be doing other things. Some of you like to work out or do other things. You can do that while you're listening, which is a lot of fun. Okay, let me go back to our slides. That was I don't even get paid to tell you anything about streetlights. That was just me telling you what I love. Also, I'm going to be using another source by a person, Dr. Ralph Wilson is his name, and he puts together some teachings on the life of David. So I'm going to be pulling from some of those just so that you guys know what I'm going to be using. But for the most part, we're going to be using the Bible and also this tiny little book. This little booklet is going to be very helpful to us. All right. We'll have a 5-minute break halfway through class. Give us a chance to stretch and get a drink, go to the bathroom. In Schoology, how many of you guys have already navigated the Schoology page? Like Renee's already started on one of the assignments, so I know she's been in there. I think Rachel might have put in something in the welcome. You guys are ahead of the game because typically for my classes, Wednesday is the first day of the week for class. And then again, Tuesday, the night before class, is the last day of the week. So our week kind of, it doesn't quite work like a typical week, but it starts on Wednesday. So if you've already got some work done, you're already ahead of the game. But if you haven't been on the Schoology page, that's where all the action is. We get together, on our weekly basis here for the live class, but all the action is in Schoology. That's where you're going to see all the updated materials. I publish the next week's folder on Saturday, so you have a couple days to see what to expect before class ever starts, which is kind of nice. All the quizzes and tests will open the day after class, and then, of course, they close the day before our next class. Any printouts, videos, all of that's going to be on the Schoology page. Notebook, it says bring a notebook for taking notes. I have notes that you can print out. If you like taking your own notes, that's totally chill. You can do that. And the notes that we have that I've provided, they're on the class page. How many of you guys have already printed those off? Anybody? Kason has, awesome. Renee and Rachel, cool deal. I'll show you where those are if you haven't been there already. I want to make sure everybody knows what to expect. Let me share that. This is our Schoology page. Just real quick. This is what it looks like for me. It'll be a little bit different for you because I got the teacher's end. But for week 1, we'll go in, and these are the notes. So you want to go to the week 1 page and click this PDF and then print those off because we're going to be going over that today for pretty much the second half of class. And then you'll see also your assignments are always going to be here. I'll go over this at the end of class 2. Here's a journal binding tutorial. I'm going to actually demonstrate it here in class 2, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to learn that. And then I'm going to go over what these delights are. Also, this is the Streetlights audio Bible link that I suggested. And then after class is over, the slides that I'm going over right now will be visible right here. And then I'll share those with you so that you can fill in any notes you might have missed, or maybe you just need some more information for homework and that kind of thing. Any questions on how this works, or on grades, or anything? Anything so far? Good, awesome, cool. Alrighty. Well, let's see. I want to go over just a little bit about me, and I want to know about you. So here's a little bit about me. My husband and I have been married for 30 years, and the really cool thing, actually, as of 8 days ago, we celebrated our anniversary. We went to Switzerland. It was amazing. And we got home yesterday, so I'm a little jet lagged and kind of confused as to what time it is in the world. I got up at 3 o'clock this morning and was ready to go and thought, wait a minute. This isn't the right thing. I'm still trying to get used to our time here. But it was amazing and just incredible. It was great to celebrate what God has done in the last 30 years, which is incredible. I have 5 children. I have 2 sons that are married. This, in fact, is my third son's wedding, and this is my oldest son and his wife, and my grandson Jethro, who is this is a very old picture because he's 2.5, so he's much bigger now. I need to update that picture. And this is my granddaughter who is now 4 months old. Her name is Amelia, and she is a doll baby. She's so cute. And I homeschooled all of these guys, all but not my daughters-in-law. I homeschooled my 5 children all the way through. It was 21 years of homeschooling. Some of you know that feeling of hanging in there with parents over the years. My kids hung in there with me, and we got there. We got it done. Um, and then my husband is a dairy farmer, and so we milk cows. He has a robotic milking system. We actually have 4 robots that milk our cows, which is pretty fascinating. If you're ever in Ohio, I'd love to give you a field trip. It's kind of fun. You can see the farm and how cows are milked. It's really kind of high tech and pretty fun. Also, my husband and I are worship leaders. We actually, since 2020, when everything shut down, we started meeting in our barn for worship, and it accidentally became a community. So we found ourselves pastoring a group of people that we didn't expect to, which is why we became well, I've decided to go to seminary. So my husband is and I are both pastoring this community, and so now it's amazing, Renee, actually, because we did not see it coming. This is something that God just kind of dropped in our laps, and after a year and a half of realizing that these people weren't going to stop coming, we decided, I decided I needed to go to seminary and I needed to learn more. So that's one of the reasons why I felt a little more confident in teaching a Bible class, just after going through Bible school and now getting my master's in pastoral care. It's kind of amazing. This is an extremely out there situation that I didn't expect. You never know what turns and twists that God will bring to your life. But that's the scoop on my life. That's pretty much it. We meet in our barn. This is our barn, which there are horses below, so it's a working barn. It's not a wedding barn. Although we did have a wedding in there this spring. One of the couples that met in our barn for worship ended up getting engaged and got married in the barn. It was pretty fascinating. So that's a little bit about me. You guys are welcome to ask me any questions about myself. But I also want to get to know you. So if you do have a question for me, pop it in the chat. If you have something about you, I want to know you guys. And obviously, all I have right now are 6 white names on black squares. That's all I have. And a little bit of history with a few of you. I know Rachel, Kaysen, Elliot, I've had before, but I don't know that much about you guys. So give me some info. What's your favorite thing to do in your spare time? Are you in this class because mom made you take this class, or are you in it because you're like, this will be fun? I always love to learn about King David. Tell me a little bit about you. And you're totally welcome to get on mic if you want to just share, just talk a little bit. Don't leave me hanging. Listen to music. Okay, Sin, you would get along with my family. Awesome, Elliot, you're 12. 12 is a great age, actually. Music is our life, really, pretty much. Video games and go outside. That's actually a good rhythm, Tatum. Play a video game, go outside, right? Then come back and play a game, go outside. That's a good rhythm. I like that. Basketball. Okay, come on, Jefferson. That was my favorite sport when I was in school. I played basketball a lot when I was in high school. You play drums, Elliot. Let's go. Dude, how far away do you live from me? We need drummers all the time. They're hard to find. Dude, you could come play with us. Wait, you saw Phil Wickham? Fun, Kaysen and Brandon Lake. Let's go. That probably was a blast. Very, very fun. Renee. Okay, Renee, that's too awesome. You really wanted to take the class. That's so cool. Four siblings, you love music, and you're an aerialist. Okay, that's amazing. Every time I see somebody doing some of those, the just different aerial things, I get like my knees start shaking. And I'm like, somebody's gonna fall. They're gonna get hurt. Because that's me. I'm the one who would fall and get hurt. Elliot, that's right. You live in California. You're a little too far for me to use as a drummer. Bummer. Well, if you ever find yourself in Ohio, come see me. Rachel, yes, Rachel's a dancer and has been for a long time. And you teach, don't you? That's incredible. That's awesome. And you've got to have a lot of patience, I'm sure. Okay, here's our map. I want to see where y'all are from. You've been playing, wait a minute, for 11 years, Kaysen? Dude, that's a long time to play soccer. What position do you play? Center back. Let's go. Okay, here's a fun fact. My husband and I both played on a soccer team together before we ever were interested in each other. I was 15 and he was 16, and we both played fullback. And that's how we met. But we like re-met. We didn't really know each other then. He was like really shy and quiet, and I was loud. He was shorter than me. Of course I was loud. You guys, yeah, you'll find that out about me. I just talk a lot. But he was very different. Anyway, we played soccer on the same team together, and I didn't see him for several years, and I started going to his church and found out, oh, I think I knew you before. Isn't that crazy? I know. It's a fun story. Let's see. 7 or 8 years. Wow, Tatum. Fun, fun, fun. So you guys are sports people. That's so cool. Very fun. Isn't it fun to watch kids grow up? Even your friends, you just grow up together. Okay, let's see. Can you guys do annotate tools? I'm gonna pop a nice little heart here in Ohio. If you don't know how to use the annotate, you go to you find the little pen icon in that bar where there's like your video and your microphone. All that's on like this bar in the chat. Or it might be view options or more options, something like that. And you can find the little annotate tools and pop yourself up there. California, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. We're all over the place. Illinois, let's go. Very fun. Renee, where are you in Illinois also? Wait, no, you're in Georgia. Sorry. Let me see here. Elliot's in Cali. Jefferson, where are you from? What state do you live in? Tatum, where are you? You're in Illinois, right? Oh, you're in Washington State? Is that right? That's like out there. Dude, so you and Elliot are in the same time zone. Now, okay, so Kaysen, are you in the same time zone then as California, Oregon, Washington? Isn't Arizona the one that like has two different time zones in the same state? Am I remembering that right? Maybe it's Nevada. I can't remember. Obviously, that's like way. You don't have daylight. Okay, that's what I remember. You don't have daylight savings, you lucky ducks. That's amazing. We just get confused twice a year. get, get royally messed up when it comes to daylight savings. Awesome. All right, well, let's take a little break. We're going to dive in to our studies. So, yeah, I bet it is hard. Class times are probably really challenging because they're so early in the day. This is a late class for me in the Eastern time zone. Yeah, I can imagine. So let's if you can get your notes, if you can go on the Schoology class page in the week 1 folder, get your notes and bring them to class. If you can't do it for whatever reason, it's not a big deal, but it's nice if you have them. And then I'm gonna dig into our stuff as soon as we get back, probably 4 or 5 minutes. See you soon. Okay. So we're going to dive into our material. If anybody has questions about anything like the logistics of the class, please just let me know. If your questions come later, you can write them down and just let me know. At the end of class, I'm happy to go over anything with you, anything that might be confusing or, the class page or anything. Just let me know. I'm here to help. Cool. Everybody back with me? Since I see black squares with white names. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Um, I might have to do like bonus points for the cameras that come on. Elliot, you're the brave soul that's letting me know you're here. Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right, so in this course, if you guys have your book, your little tiny journal book or devotional book, sorry, you can like look at this with me if you want. It's basically this little booklet. It's pretty fantastic, actually. It's broken up into 3 sections, which is kind of technically 4. I'm just gonna say it, but they say it's 3 sections. So it's the rise of David, David's reign, and also his regret and redemption. They're kind of lumping those 2 together. I think it's kind of makes for 4 sections, but R helps you remember all these 3 different sections. So we're going to be studying, first of all, how did he come into becoming a king? What was the rise? There's a long process. He wasn't anointed king and then like the next day he just started being a king. It was a long and drawn out and ridiculous. It was very, very difficult. So David had all kinds of stuff that he went through in order to become king, even though he was anointed king as just like a teenager, which is crazy. So we'll study about that. But I want you to turn in there to page 5. This thing says intro. And this is getting started. There's just some explanations here. And again, we're using nice little letters here. They're using the letter D. So there's devotionals that basically this is a 30-day devotional book. So you could, if you wanted, you could do the whole class in 30 days and be done. But what I'm going to do is use this little booklet as a guide for us to go in deeper throughout the whole semester for 15 weeks. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Cool, clear as mud? Maybe we're good. Okay, so basically at the top of the page of each one of these, you'll see where it says day 1, right? So that's not typically our day. We're going to do 2 days in every week. So basically 2 devotionals in a week. So like this week, you're going to have day 1, day 2. That'll be your this week's homework. Next week will be week 3, week 4, or day 3, day 4. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Because it's 30 days, we can do 2 in a week. Okay, not hard to explain or not hard to understand. I mean, each devotion is going to be made up of 3 different parts. We're going to have discover, delight, and display. And you'll see that in the class page for a lot of your homework and that kind of stuff. So the discover section, we're going to dig in here. And this is written there, you can read along. It says, this section helps you examine the passage in light of who God is and determine what it says about your identity in relationship to Him. Included here is the daily scripture reading and key verses, along with illustrations and commentary to guide you as you learn more about God's Word. So that's basically what that whole section is. This is also going to include Bible passages that you're supposed to listen to or read. For this week, you're going to be reading 2 chapters in the Bible. And of course, this little devotional, which is just like one little page. You can see it's just one little page of something to read before you answer those questions. So you'll be reading the little devotional and the Bible scripture passage. From here out, and starting next week, we're going to be listening to the Psalms. And that'll be like 10 chapters in Psalms each week, something like that. 10 to 12, something like that. So what you'll want to do, I think, personally, I think it's easiest to listen to it and listen to it while you're doing other things too. I'm not super picky that you read every single last word. I want you to get the big, broad picture in the Psalms. We're going to understand the structure of the Psalms. We'll study that out a little bit next week. But what you're going to be doing is listening to them so that you'll get through the entire book of Psalms, which is 150 chapters. It's a lot of chapters. We want to get through that whole thing. Audio Bibles are your friend. I already gave my little blip about um, streetlights. I love streetlights. But again, you can almost any app on your phone that does Bible, I think Bible Gateway, a whole bunch of them do audiobook. So you can do an audio version. The second section, you can see there on page 5, where it says delight, it says in this section, you'll be challenged by questions and activities that help you see how God is alive and active in every detail of his word and your life. There's going to be like 2 to 3 questions for each devotional. So again, we have 2 per week, and we're going to be using that for our class discussion in Schoology. Now, I'm building a lot of this as we go, so there might be some adjustments to this as we go. You guys can work with me, but this is going to be a lot of fun for us to learn more about each other and just kind of expand on these discussions. So you want to give your thoughts about the questions. So for instance, on this first one, it says God's choosing David was unexpected to his father and to the prophet Samuel. When was the time when you've been surprised by God's choice in your life? There's a really interesting question. So it's kind of fun to learn about each other a little bit through these discussions too. So go ahead and answer those. I have a question here though. How many of you guys have ever answered a discussion post using the microphone or the video? Has anybody ever done that for discussion posts? You have once? Okay. This is your friend. They count. This is a really great idea. So I'm just going to show you just really quick. When you go on the class page for these assignments, I want to make this as enjoyable and easy as possible. Sometimes typing can be tedious. Do that work for English or, for some other assignment, but don't do that for for this class. This class, we want to make it as easy as possible. You can see Renee's already added, which is really cool. So when you go to write your comment, look at these buttons down here. You guys see that? So you can click on the microphone, you can do audio only, and you can do audio and video. So I can start recording. Hey, this is the answer to my question. And it'll hold that. Start recording. Hey, this is the answer to my question. There you go. And then you, of course, click the insert, and then you've got your answer right there. Make them just, don't make them like 10 minutes long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the most. 30 seconds is even enough for an answer. So don't like overdo it on this, but utilize these tools, you guys. It's totally acceptable. You can do video, you can do just microphone, just reply so that it becomes interesting and we can learn more from each other. Does that make sense to everybody? You guys all got that? Just want to make sure that we're all clear. This is a great way to use that feature for homework. Okay, and then the last section is display, and this is one of the fun ones. So there again on page 5, it says, here's where you take action. The section calls you to apply what you've learned through each day. Also, each day is going to include a prayer activity that is at the conclusion of the devotion. And that's going to be basically a prompt for you to start praying in the form of a journal. And this is very much like what King David would have done. He would have written down his prayers, which became his songs, which became the book of Psalms in a lot of ways. So we're going to look at that. So for this portion, you're going to be using your own homemade sewn journal. Yay, I am that person who's going to make you do this. It's going to be fun. Some of you guys who like making stuff, this is going to be great for you. Those of you who are not thrilled with this, I made it as easy as possible so that it won't be, I like hands-on. That's my favorite. But this is going to be, it's very simple, very, very simple. I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate to this. This is going to be your response to the materials, to what God is speaking to you in these scriptures. And the prayer prompts are just basically a place to start, but you can pray whatever is in your heart. I'm not going to be reading your journal. You're going to be just filling that in on your own, and then it's going to be an honor system on you answering, yes, I did my journal activity, basically. This is going to be between you and God. You're going to grow. You're going to be surprised at how God speaks to you through this, which is very amazing. There are times when I've journaled before, I'll be praying about something and journaling to God, and I forget all about it. But then when I go back and read it, I'm blown away how God answered my prayers. And I'm like, wait, what? I didn't expect this. I didn't know that God would use that and actually hear my prayers. But that is a very amazing discipline in your life to be able to journal out what you hear God saying. So here we go. We're gonna make a journal. I'm gonna just do it right now. Are you ready? This is what you need. These are the materials. There's a tutorial on the class page, but I'm gonna put my mic down or my camera. You guys can see what I'm doing. Hang in there with me for a second. Okay, hopefully you can all see this. Um, Made it very simple. Now, what you'll need is paper, at least 15 sheets, because again, we're gonna fold it in half, so you need at least 30 sheets, right? You want 30 different journal entries. So I've got a stack of 15 pages, which is not, it's not super thick, right? It's just that. This was my template, just moving that over. You can make this however you want. You can do a cardstock, like there's just a piece of cardstock. Here's a piece of really thick paper. You can make a leather journal. Mama Bear loves making leather journals. That's kind of one of my hobbies. I'll show you one that I made. This is one of mine that I've made, and I sew the bindings. It's just, this is my Psalms journal. So I've been writing the Psalms by hand so that, I can have my own version of the Psalms. I started this back when I took my Psalms class in Bible school, but it's all handwritten, and I'm only on Psalm 19. But I've got a lot more pages to finish, but isn't that awesome? It's so much fun. So you can use a leather covering if you want. I know Hobby Lobby has big sheets of leather that you can, use and do your journal that way. If you want to keep it simple, like I'm going to do today, like here's a piece of leather that you can use. Thin is really easy to poke through. But I've got all these different kinds of cardstock that I can pull from, but I'm going to use this one. I'm actually going to do these two pieces together because one is bigger than the other. I kind of like that idea. So I've got this big piece, and that's going to be my outside. So I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to put the stack of paper on the inside of this and kind of square it off, make sure it's all kind of squared, make sure we're not unsquared. And basically what I'm going to do is measure first. So you'll need wax thread. You don't have to have anything special. You can use yarn. You can use like a hemp thread. This is just a simple thick type of, what do they call this? Cord. It's cotton cord is what it says on the little thingy. So this is very simple to use. You need a large needle, something that you can get that cord through, right? So my needle is big enough that I can fit this into it. So make sure that your cord will fit into your needle. Some people make their holes big enough that they don't even need a needle. They can just slide it through. An awl or a thick nail will work. So this is my awl. I use this to poke through leather. It's very strong. Or you can just use a nail. This is a nail, and you can just use that to poke your holes, whichever you have handy. And of course, I've got my little hammer for my awl or my nail. This is a great little hammer. It's kind of cute. And then clips, I'm going to use clips to hold it in place once I measure. And then scissors, of course, to snip it off. And those are basically the tools that you need. Very simple. And this is basically what we're going to do. I'm not going to fold my stack of paper first. In that tutorial that I have on the class page, I saw how they did it without folding first, and I was pretty impressed with that. So my paper is 8.5 by 11. So half of that is going to be 5.5 inches. So I'm going to just find 5.5 on my ruler here and mark the top and the bottom with 5.5 as my middle ground. And then I want to draw a line from the top to the bottom where those dots are so that I know the exact spot of the middle of my book. There you go. So now I have a line right down the middle. Now my goal here is to I want to do 4 different spots, 4 different holes that I'm going to be making. So I need to space them evenly across. So I'm going to leave a little bit of room at the end. I'm going to leave 3/4 of an inch. You can decide for yourself how you want to, but the easiest way to do this is to have a middle spot for your center hole. So because my page is 8.5 inches long, I'm going to go with 4.25 because that's the halfway point. So I'm just drawing a little dot at the halfway mark. That's 4.25. Make sure I got that right. Let me get my face over it. 4.25. And that is the halfway mark. That'll be my first hole. So I want to do, actually I'm going to do 5 holes. Sorry, I said 4. I want to do 5. So from here, I'm going to go 3/4 in from the end on this side and 3/4 inch from this side so that I have that even space on either end. Okay. So now I have 3 dots or 3 holes, and then I'm going to go in the center of each of those. If you want, you can get kind of creative and do like, instead of like, so my space here is 3.5 inches. I could do 1 inch and leave, 2.5 inches long so that you have different, lengths. It's kind of fun to play around with that, but you just want to make sure all of your holes are even through your paper and your cover, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do them even. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3.5 inches. So that would be 1.5 and another quarter. So 1 3/4 is that there. And I'm going to measure 1 3/4 down here as well. 1 3/4. There we go. So now I have 5 dots where I'm going to poke a hole right through everything. So I'm going to square this off, make sure I'm even, because I have kind of 2 covers. Those are even. Those are even. And I got clips. If you're confident that you can do it without clips, more power to you. I always want to make sure everything's perfectly even. So I'm going to clip on this end, hold them tight. I'm going to clip on the other side, hold them tight. And that'll keep everything in place. Now we're going to poke our holes. I'll just use the nail this time. And this board, you want to make sure your board is something you don't care about. I've got this cutting board that I've poked so many holes. Can you guys see all those holes? I've got so many holes in here from making journals. It's kind of fun. All right, am I boring you guys to death yet? There's holes. Holes. I'm sure that's very loud. Sorry for your ears. Rest in peace, ears. And one more hole. Okay. Let's make sure that they got through to the other side. I see the hole. Yay. I don't know if you can see those. Perfect. Okay, so now for sewing, what I need is 2 lengths of string, a little bit longer, just so I have room to tie it. You can't hear it at all, even the banging. I'm impressed. Okay, so I'm taking the length that's the same length as this, but I have to do that twice. So I'm going plenty over the end over here and over the end over here. And then I'm going to stretch it again. So I have plenty of string. I don't want to run out. I'm going to snip it and then take my fat needle. I'm going to run this through. I might actually be able to fit this through the holes without the needle because I made these holes pretty big, but just to demonstrate if I can get it through the needle. There's something nobody told me, that when I turned 50, I would no longer be able to see. So it's challenging when you get old, you guys. You can't see things, and it's not your choice. It just happens to you. So don't make fun of your parents when they can't see the tiny writing on the back of ingredients list and they have to take a picture with their phone and then zoom it in because you can't see anything. I'm not being able to get this in. It's probably because of my eyesight. Anyway, well, I should be able to get that in, but I can't. So I'm just gonna cruise on here. I think I made my holes big enough that I can fit through. Let's see if I can. Might have to make my hole a little bit bigger. I'm going to pound just a little bit more. Hang with me, just because I can't thread my needle. I'm being firm this time. Okay, back at it. All right, so I'm going to take my string, and you can start wherever you want. I think the tutorial said to start in the middle, but I'm sliding it into the hole, and I'm going into the next hole over, and you're basically it's basically in and out, in and out, in and out until you're all done and you tie it off. And I feel like you really need the needle to do this well. So I apologize that I cannot see. See if I can possibly get this. Trying a different needle right now. So you guys basically get the idea of how this works. Okay, this one's working better. There we go. I got this one. All right. In and out. You want to leave a little tail so that you can tie it. The easiest thing though is to pull this through on accident. You don't want to do that. So pull it through, in and out, in and out. Is this making sense? Or are you guys like totally confused? You got it? That's awesome. Thank you for replying. So I know I haven't lost you completely. Okay, so once you get through, tighten up all your strings, just pull them kind of tight, and then make a knot. Just make a knot there, kind of hold it in place. Make your knot. If you tie it well, then your book shouldn't fall apart. You don't want your book falling apart halfway through the semester. Okay, so now we're sewn in. I'm going to snip off my extra string here. And I can pull my clips off. So now I'm left with, there's the outside. And what I'm going to do is fold on the line where that seam is. Fold this one over. So we're making kind of the binding on the outside. And I'm going to fold this other big one over because I made my cover with kind of 2 pages of cover. There we go. So now I'll bend it the other way, but first we're going to put all the pages together and bend those together so it makes a book. And you can use a firm edge, you know, even your ruler to kind of flatten that. Flatten your pages and go the other direction also. I'm just using cardstock. This is actually like an artist paper, which is really cool. It's from this art pad. I think that you can do like watercolors on it and stuff. So you could even make your entire book out of that and add, you know, drawings. And if you're artists, you guys like doing that kind of stuff. So this is my little book. There's the binding. Yay. And you can decorate the front, you can glue stuff to it, you can do whatever you want, but you're gonna mark first day, day 1, day 2, day 3, or you know, however you want to for the different devotional the display section of your devotion. Does that make sense? So now you guys all have a tutorial on the books. Let's pop this back up so you can see me. Yay, my little book. It's kind of fun. Very simple, very easy to do. Took up too much of my time on the class page, but or on the class time, but that is your booklet. You can trim it, you can make it fancy, you can do leather, you can do whatever just to make one. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. Does that make sense? Just want to make sure everybody knows you do not have to get super, you know, crazy with it. Awesome. But I do want you to make it. I do want it to be a homemade thing because it becomes very more very much more personal. That's the whole point of this exercise, is that it's very personal to you and the Lord, and it's something that you made, so it becomes more of your own. Even if you don't like the way it turns out, it is personal to you. It's something that you made and that you crafted. And so it's kind of a fun activity. It's very good. All right, next, let's go with our notes. So pop your notes up. Here's our historical background and the context for what we're doing. Our cast list, of course, is going to include Samuel, the Philistines, and Saul, and King David. Now, we're not going to be able to understand this calling of King David without understanding some of this historical backdrop. So let's dig in. We're going to look at David himself. His name actually comes from a Hebrew word. Okay, this is funny. Sorry, you guys. This is just a funny thing I noticed. My bullet points look like circles. They look like O's, but those are bullet points, just to clarify. The Hebrew root word, it says a verbal root word, is DWD. And now I'm not fully educated in Hebrew. I know just a tiny bit, enough to be dangerous, but not enough to really know what I'm doing. Hebrew is a very complex language, but it's fascinating when you dig in deeper. This DWD word is a verbal root word that means to love, and that's likely where David's name came from. And so it means beloved. Again, you guys can notice that on your notes, this is where you can fill in the blanks. Um, if you fill in the blanks on your notes, any notes that you have filled out during class, you can bring with you to take a quiz. So any quizzes that I have that are on the class material, bring your notes. So that's one of the reasons for you to fill out your notes during class. It's kind of fun. So his name means beloved. In 2 Samuel, this is one of the ways that the entire Hebrew culture is going to view David this way. They see him as the sweet psalmist of Israel. And that's in 2 Samuel 23:1. He's called the sweet psalmist of Israel. It's pretty amazing to think of this person as that significant. He played the harp while he was attending sheep. You know, he was a musician, but and if you think about it, a shepherd is somebody who's just you could be bored all day long, or it could be nonstop action, right? So if you have to save an animal from, predators, that's an action day. But for the most part, you're just leading them into different pastures and different places where they can eat, and it could be boring just sitting there watching them eat. So he's brought his harp along and he's just playing. He's just singing to the Lord all day long while he's working. He grew up, became a court musician for the first king. That's a pretty significant role there. So King Saul was the first king of Israel, and he's got his own story, which we'll find out here in a few minutes. But another significant thing about David is he penned nearly half of the book of Psalms. So the Psalms are written by a lot of different people, even by Moses. Moses wrote Psalm 91, Psalm 90, Psalm 90. Yeah, which is crazy. So Moses is included in there. Also, the sons of Korah are in there. We might talk a little bit about them. There's several different people that contributed to this book, but David pretty much established this idea of having a psalm book. When we study the Psalms, we'll find out that the Psalms are basically the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. It's the Torah put to music. How cool is that? That he thought, the best way for us to really learn the Word of God is to put it to music. And so he created this psalm book of ways that we can sing the Torah, which is so cool. So he was more than a musician. David was a worshiper, and he taught us a lot about worship. He taught us a lot about what God enjoys in worship. So one of the things that we talk about in our community when we're pastoring our young people, and my husband and I raise up a lot of musicians and worship leaders. One of the things that is very, very important to understand is that worship is what you focus on. It's what you give your attention to. That can be a little challenging sometimes, right? So we'll be talking about that all throughout the semester, but I want you to just have that in the back of your mind, that what you focus on, what you give your attention to, is what you worship. And so David was a worshiper of God. He studied God. He wanted to know more about God. He was also a famous warrior, famous warrior. So all of Israel, even today, looks at David as the iconic, famous warrior in all of their history. So he's the most famous one that they have because he did the most incredible feats of basically being a warrior fighter. So after defeating Goliath, which was literally impossible, he was a teenager, and Goliath was a trained, humongous person who was very much a warrior, and everyone in the whole country, the whole nation was scared to death of him. And David didn't care because he was like, yeah, God's on my side, so it doesn't matter how big you are. He was just a crazy warrior. And then after, of course, after he defeated Goliath, Saul made him an officer, and he began to lead battles where he would win over and over and over again. And he didn't just like give all of his troops orders. He would lead them by actually being the fighter, being the one that was defeating the enemy. And he did it by sheer strength and by faith in God. Those two things about David are amazing characteristics because like I might have strong faith in God, but I have no strength. Angie has wimpy arms and is not able to fight enemies. But this guy, David, was a warrior that was like incredibly built. He was able to like be quick on his feet. He obviously, even as a young teenager, he was able to kill a bear. Like, is that even a thing? Like he killed a lion. Like I'm like, was this a small bear? Was this a small lion? I don't know, but he did it, which is absolutely incredible. So he was a warrior, very very much a warrior, but he was also a kingdom builder, and this is very interesting. So Saul, of course, became jealous. You guys are going to read about this. Oh, I see my typo. Saul became jealous of David's successes, and when he was chased by Saul, basically David ran to a cave. And that's why the picture to get into this class is the picture of a cave, because the cave of Adullam represents this place where David would just go to get away from being pursued by Saul. In this cave, this is what's crazy. All the men who were in distress or in debt or discontented, this is all in 2 Samuel 22, they all gathered there, and there were 400 men with him. Can you imagine being in a cave with 400 men? So what David did was he took these men and he said, I'm going to make you into an army. So all these distressed and in debt and discontented men became what is known as David's mighty men. They were the warriors. And when David became the rightful king and did his job and his duty, these men were insane, amazing warriors that would just go in and just completely wipe out different places so that they could gain the territory. They wanted to gain territory. That's how they all became nations back in the day. They gained the territory. So in First Chronicles 11:2, this is a really interesting passage. It says, in times past, even when Saul was king, you, talking about David, was the one who led out and brought in Israel. Basically, he was talking about the armies. You led them out and you brought them back in. And the Lord your God said to you, you shall shepherd my people Israel, and you shall be prince over my people Israel. And that was just a really interesting way that they looked at that. They saw David was the one who led them out, but not just led them out to die, he led them out to conquer and then brought them back in, which is very, very interesting. It's very also historical. You have to think in terms of what happened back in the day. These things don't happen today. We don't just go conquer people and use sheer force to get over, take over their territory. That was very much how things were done back then. So you have to kind of think in those mindset. Also, as a nation builder, David united the 12 tribes. So they were kind of loose. If you read through Judges, which is a rated R book, I'm just gonna say it. It's like it's hard to read it because they were so horrible to each other, to other people. It was just nasty. And so this is the state of Israel before they had a king. They were just like scattered. They were not in a great mindset. They didn't have anybody to rule over them. The Bible says that they all did what was right in their own eyes. It was just a pathetic situation for the nation. And so David brought these 12 tribes of Israel together and united them. And in his own lifetime, he brought this scattered group of people, brought them in, united them, and made them this nation that was built up. So he conquered Jerusalem. He made it the capital city. He built a palace. Then he brought the Ark of the Covenant up to Jerusalem, which was a very unique thing in itself. We're going to be studying about that a little bit in passages to come. That is absolutely incredible that he took all of this and did it all in his lifetime. And then, of course, he subdued these surrounding kingdoms, which is which is really amazing. This picture, I love this picture. This is I don't know who James Tissot is. Tissot? I don't know how to say Tissot. Anyway, he painted this picture of David's mighty men, or valiant men, depends on the translation, but like they're a band of warriors that started out as just a pathetic group of people. And I love that because King David saw the potential in these people that were really broken. They were a hot mess. They had probably very terrible beginnings, right? If they were in debt, they probably had, a very difficult childhood. Maybe their parents weren't even alive anymore, or who knows? We don't know anything about those stories, but they had a very yucky kind of life that they came from, and God took this group and let David be their leader. Absolutely, Elliot. I love the Mighty Ducks. That's like one of my favorite movies. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that one. That's a great example. It's like just pulling them together, making them a team, and honestly building from the ground up. He had almost nothing to work with. In fact, he had kind of negative to work with. He didn't have resources. He had a cave and a bunch of grumpy people. And he took that situation and he's like, yep, I'm going to use that. I'm going to work with that. We're going to actually conquer the whole entire world and be known as the most famous leader of all of the history of Israel, and become the person who the Messiah will come from. Right? Oh, it's so true. It's amazing. That just always blows my mind. But God loves to take the little bit and turn it into something great. So you have to know a little bit about the Philistines. The Philistines migrated from the Aegean Sea area. They might have been part of the Sea Peoples, which is a historical group of people that settled in Canaan, which Canaan is like this whole territory. And if you remember anything about Abraham, God promised all of Canaan to Abraham and the descendants of Abraham. So he's like, this is part of that whole covenantal promise between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and those 12 tribes was to conquer that territory. And that's what was in David's heart. David's like, God promised this to us, so now we need to take it. And that's part of what we're supposed to do. This area is called Palestine. You might have heard that word recently. There's a lot of uproar about it. And I know in this class we don't talk about politics. That's part of the things that's swirling in the political world. But if you know a little bit about this, the Hebrew word Palestine is a Hebrew word. Palestine was the territory that the Hebrews overcame of the Philistines. So the word Palestine comes from the Hebrew word name of Philistine. Isn't that crazy? Kind of interesting to think about. So they were loosely connected to a lot of these different kingdoms, different tribes, different peoples. This map is after David. This is closer to after Solomon, actually. So it's not the map that David would have looked at. He wouldn't have seen this. This was after his time, because the kingdom of Israel was already split into the kingdom of Israel up here and kingdom of Judah down here. But when David came, he was conquering all of this territory and bringing it together. So the different countries that were not Israel were sometimes they were loosely connected, but they all hated Israel. And so they would join together in battle against Israel. And so that's what David was up against when he was conquering. I know, very, very interesting. Okay, so another thing to know about, and we've got like 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to cruise through this. Saul's disobedience. This is part of your reading this week. You're going to read about 1 Samuel 15 and 16. If you want to, you could like start listening, maybe to do an audiobook and listen to those first 14 chapters of Samuel, 1 Samuel. It kind of gives a little bit of context for Samuel's origins and where he came from and what ended up happening, but you only have to start with 1 Samuel 15 and 16. David's story, his story actually begins with the disobedience of Saul. He was anointed as king, and usually a king would come from another king, right? When the old man dies, the son becomes king or prince, or there's a queen, right? This isn't what happened here. So basically, David didn't come from a king. He was anointed as king because of Saul's disobedience. Saul was supposed to be the king that his lineage would go on, but it didn't work out that way. Samuel, this is what happened. Samuel told Saul to wait for him, but because Samuel didn't come on time, Saul just went ahead and offered the sacrifice himself. And you'll read about this story. But Samuel's response was this: You acted foolishly. You did not keep the command of the Lord your God gave to you. And if you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him leader of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command. Ouch. Ouch, ouch. That's a bad deal right there. And you'll see when you read this passage, Saul was motivated because of the people. He only cared about what the people thought. He was not caring about what God said or what God thought. He wanted to impress the people with himself. So this is a very interesting picture right here, because what ended up happening is Saul disobeyed again, and he just totally did not do what God commanded. God commanded them to destroy all of the Amalekites, and instead of doing the whole job, Saul was like, "Yeah, we'll keep this and this. We'll keep these sheep and we'll keep this." And he decided what to do. So he was very presumptuous in deciding that he could have it his own way. He also cared a lot about what the people thought. So Samuel told him the kingdom will be torn from him, and he tells him that as Saul is like freaking out, he grabs Samuel's cloak and just ends up ripping it. And that's when Samuel turns and looks at him. He's like, yeah, the nation's going to be torn from you. The kingdom is torn from you today. Oh, ouch. That's a bad deal right there for Saul. Saul was holding on for all he could, but it was not going to work well for him. So at that point, and you'll read about that, that's when the Spirit left Saul. The Holy Spirit was no longer with him. And so he was tormented. He had a lot of demonic torment going on in his mind. And this is when he asked for David to be this musician to help soothe him, because he was just really miserable. One of the things that Samuel told him, this is a very powerful statement, you guys: to obey is better than sacrifice, and rebellion is as witchcraft. Eeh, that's bad. That is bad deal. That's a bad, bad deal. Witchcraft, sometimes I don't think you think of witchcraft as in like, messing around with things you shouldn't, that are demonic or satanic, right? Like rituals or playing with a Ouija board, or, stuff like that is what we think in our mind as witchcraft. But Samuel points it out and says, listen, rebellion is like witchcraft. Whew. That makes you have a little bit higher standard for being obedient, right? So I'm going to ask this question in a few minutes. What motivated Saul's choices? We're going to ask that in just a minute here. Just to wrap it up, this is the last part. David was unassuming. He was just out watching sheep. He wasn't looking to be king. He was just faithfully doing his work. He was worshiping the Lord. He was a teenager. They think he was 16 or 17 years old. How old are you guys? You guys are probably pretty close. Renee, you're 17, 15, 14, 13. You're all teenagers. At least probably the majority of you guys. That is how he was. He was in your age group. 12, you're pretty close, Elliot. Your age group, like he would have been in your youth group. Like if you think about that, it's like, what? So he was just doing his work. He wasn't assuming anything. He was worshiping God, and that was his focus. And God saw that he had a heart after him and him alone. That's pretty impressive and pretty important to this. So God told Samuel that man looks on the outward appearance, right? But God looks on the heart. And that's 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. You'll read that. After all the brothers were rejected back here, David was anointed as the king. That is very significant to David, that all of them were rejected and they were probably way more qualified. In fact, Samuel was even kind of deceived a little bit by their looks and their appearance. And God's like, no, don't look that way. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we're not impressed, but God's like, hey, I don't look at this outward thing. I look at what's going on inside of you. So, our questions here, which we don't really have a lot of time here, we're out of time, but I want you to just think about these questions. What motivated Saul's choices? Like, he disobeyed twice, very significant in significant ways. The motivation here, what do you guys think? What was his motivation for choosing what he did? Now, once you read the passages, you'll probably have a lot more answers to understanding this, but just by this little breakdown, yeah, he wanted to be loved by the people. Exactly. Yes. Okay, awesome. Elliot, go for it. What do you think?
Answer it. You have to answer the question, Elliot.
Worldly desires.
Yes.
Like he cared more about himself more than God. So he cared like if everybody loved him, everybody wanted this or that. It was like kind of like how the presidents would act. Like you have to vote, and like the people voted to do this, then he do this. If they wanted to do that, he do that, and he wouldn't care a single clue.
Yes. Okay, I love that you said that because he was more interested in making the people like him. So he would do whatever they wanted. Just like you're saying. Yeah, he was motivated by what they wanted and he wanted to look good. You guys, that's one of the biggest temptations in life. It's hard to get past this desire to want to be special. You want to be known and loved by everybody. You want everybody to like you. But really, what matters is that we're loved by God and that our motivation for our choices is that way, not by what other people think, right? So this is so good. Yeah, I love what you said, Renee, too. Like his jealousy, his fear of maybe being rejected by the people. He was like, "Ooh, I got a big job. I gotta rise to the occasion," and he really wanted to people please. Um, so you guys can think about these questions. I'm not going to go over them because we're out of time. But how do you think David felt about his brothers being rejected? Oof. Like usually we don't think about that. What was it? What did it feel like for the brothers, and how did David feel about that? That might have been pretty tough. And then you can see even later on when we read about it, his brothers didn't treat him well. They're pretty rotten. Elliot, go ahead.
They got hit. He probably didn't get hit by the "I'm better than you" bug, but his brothers definitely got hit by the "I'm not as good as my brother" bug.
Ooh, good point. That's a good point. Yeah, they probably did. They probably were bitter towards him. Like, what makes him so special? And also, there's this invitation that we have at every turn to cave into the pressures of caring about what others think about us. So, this is something just to think about. Even when you're journaling this week, you might want to even just write out before the Lord, before just you and Him, talk about how is it that I'm caving into the pressures of what other people think about me, and how am I letting that motivate me in my choices? Okay, so going over homework real quick. You're going to read or listen, or read and listen, either one. 1 Samuel 15 through 17. That's going to give you a good backdrop of how David was, well, basically how Saul fell, and how David was brought to the place of being anointed. It also will talk about Goliath and that whole story of David and Goliath. The Shepherd King pages are 4 through 10 for day 1 and 11 through 13 for day 2. So you're going to do both of those devotionals. Then answer the discussion questions that are on the class page and comment on someone else's post at least once. And you can do that by way of just an audio or a video, either one. Or you can just type it out, whichever you prefer is fine. And then your project for the display is going to be, and I say display because that's what it's called in your little devotion book. It's creating your prayer journal that I just showed you how to make. And then it has to be at least 30 pages long. And then adding your own personal prayer to the journal entry. Awesome. All right, you guys, I'm done. If you have any questions, I'll stick around. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week.